Hey there, gals and ghouls. I'm Patricia Krmpotich, and I'm here today to tell you the best superhero joke you will ever hear. Bob here is going to help me out. So, Bob, why does Magneto call himself Magneto?
I don't know. Why?
Because magnets are neat, yo!
Made that up?
I made that up. Well, here we have the incredibly talented Bob Conway.
Hey, this is Groovy, and you are not having a nightmare. I just transformed into a fat old guy. I'm here with the legendary Bob Conway. We're at Vision Comics. How the heck are you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
This is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this, yes.
Me too. I mean, you're a freaking legend. Look at all this good stuff.
Well, I didn't know I was a legend, but I have been around a while.
You know what legends do? Just stick around until everyone else drops.
It could be, yes. I'm working on it.
You'll outlive us all, and thankfully you are so talented and everything. What do you do? What's going on? What's happening?
Well, basically, I love comics, and I've been involved as a collector and other things for since I was a kid. But currently, I work in a print shop, and my way of staying involved with comics is by printing them from local creators, and I've done it for years and years. But I'm getting back into it a bit more than I have in the past.
Doing your own art kind of thing?
Well, not so much my own art, even though I have done that in the past, but I discovered I was too slow. Doing a page a month or something like that just wouldn't cut it. So I can get involved by printing other people's comics and still get the satisfaction of being part of the community.
That is so cool. So tell me about some of these cool things you got here.
Yeah, a lot of these I have printed. This is the very first comic book I printed, Kits and Cats comics, back in the early 1980s.
Wow.
This was done by Bob Lachlan, who was the artist or inker of the Heathcliff comic strip in the newspapers back then. So I was very happy with this. This is the first comic book I ever published when I was known as Fantasy Press.
Okay. That's awesome.
So I was pretty proud of that, and I went out to San Diego Comic-Con to promote it. And then shortly after that, the one in your hand, BattleBot, that's another one from a long time ago. A local artist named Rich Arnold.
Okay.
He's no longer active like he was, but it's anime. It's Japanese animation based before that became such a popular thing.
Wow.
So ahead of its time.
So you were ahead of your time printing that.
Right. Before I got into the full-size comics, though, now you mentioned my own artwork.
Yeah.
I did do this Mr. Fly little mini comic. This was a big fad around the country, where people would go into Xerox shops and print their own comics. But since I worked at a print shop, I had the luxury of being able to put color covers on them. But this one I did draw. It's got Mighty Mouse in the back. And it was published in Colorado Springs by Everyman Studios.
Okay.
So that's in the 1970s.
Wow.
But Artie Romero was the head of Everyman Studios. He went on into television, animation, movie animation, and so the reins kind of went to me for printing mini comics. This is the last one Everyman Studios did.
Wow.
So I did about 20 mini comics.
Super cool. Is that your art as well?
That one's not. That's done by Steve Willis, who's kind of a legend in the mini comic scene.
Right.
But another local artist back then was Harry Lorico, who displayed at Pirate Gallery. White Boy Goes to Hell. This is kind of a legend amongst the mini comic old-time collectors.
Mini comics still exist at all?
Actually, they do. I'm not quite as on top of what's going on with the smaller size books, but yeah, there's hundreds, if not thousands of people around the country that still make mini comics.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Just another one. This is the drawing stick was done by Tom Motley, who now teaches at the School of Visual Arts in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, wow.
So he's an old friend that I was happy to do this.
It's like a place for a stamp on it.
Exactly. That was his idea, to turn it into kind of a postcard.
Oh, wow.
But in terms of mini comics, I was real happy with this one. I didn't publish this, but this was for Eclipse Comics.
Okay.
Scott McCloud was doing Zot at the time, so Eclipse, actually Scott contacted me about printing his Zot 10.5 mini comic. So that was a highlight I was very happy to be involved with.
That is super cool.
So yeah, drawn by Matt Fiesel. Stick figure extraordinaire.
I can do stick figures.
Great. We'll have to see them sometimes. Yeah, but then I had access. I had the ability to print full-size comics, so like the Kits and Cats and the others I showed earlier. I decided to try to print other local artist comics, and recently I've been real happy. This is local artist Richard Florence, who did Haphazard. He's like the funniest guy I've ever met. His comics are hilarious. And I published one of his mini comics back in the early 80s, and I just printed this one like 2 years ago, so he's still active. And he will be at Denver Comic Con at the table with me for Acme Comics.
Excellent.
So, and we'll have copies of this available. So I'm really happy he's...
Who else is going to be at the Acme Comics booth?
Dennis Pemple is the head writer. This is again in the mid '80s. I met Dennis. I was doing the Fantasy Press stuff on my own, and I met Dennis Pemple. He's the along with Tom Motley. They both organized Acme Comics. Again, just local artists that trying to do what they could to promote themselves, etc. But at the table at Denver Comic Con coming up will be myself, Richard Florence, Dennis Pemple. He's still very supportive of us, and Rich Moyer, a little younger artist, will be there. So,
Awesome.
So the four of us. Yeah.
That's going to be excellent. Do you know booth number by any chance?
Oh, I don't. I don't. But somewhere in, I assume, Artist Alley or whatever it's called.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you're going to have so much amazing stuff at the table. Like, what else is going to be on there?
Yeah, there's anything new. I'm not sure. I think there's going to be a brand new book, which I haven't printed yet, but there's still plenty of time. It only takes about a week for us to get a book printed. So, but a lot of this old stuff, excess inventory from decades past. We're still trying to, well, it's not about the sales. It's about meeting people and just sharing the love of comics.
There's going to be some vintage stuff at the table, too.
Yeah, a lot of, well, again, the mini comics are pretty vintage. So newer and older things.
Right.
And around the convention, again, will be other artists that I've dealt with, and I'll have copies of their, like I do want to mention this one. Here's something I printed recently. My Gal the Zombie by local creator Dan Connors, the artist.
Great dude.
And the wonderful lady that just introduced me, Patricia Krmpotich, she writes this. So this was a lot of fun.
That's so cool.
And Stan.
We got to call out Stan.
Yeah, Stan Yan. He's a good friend of mine that I'm happy to also print his comics. A couple years ago, I did this Vincent Price for him. And recently, he's working on this Regret is a preview to a graphic novel where he's talking about a friend of his who unfortunately developed cancer, but this is Stan's remembrance of him, so this is pretty touching. This, I think, will be available at the convention at Stan's booth.
Awesome.
So that's a couple of them, and I was happy to do this. Thunder Monkey by Lee Oakes. This one he donated. This is a Mile High Comics exclusive, and all the proceeds go to Feeding Denver's Hungry.
Oh, wow.
So Chuck Rosansky and Lee donated, like I said, the proceeds. So I'm happy to be involved with this also.
That is excellent.
And one other, I mean, I did have some success as an artist, if I can mention.
Oh, absolutely.
I was real happy to be published in this issue of Critters by Fantagraphics. About the same time I was printing these earlier books. Okay. And but again, I was too slow. But here's a Mr. Fly. Oh, Mr. Fly's on my T-shirt. So Mr. Fly's been around a long time. Well, and that mini comic I showed earlier was Mr. Fly. But it's a 4-page story, but it took like 6 months to do. So I really had to give up kind of doing art.
But the details are excellent.
I enjoy drawing. It's a lot of fun. This was written by Mark Armstrong, who did Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham for Marvel Comics.
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Yep, I absolutely
oh, yeah. So I was happy to work with him also. So I've just had I love comics.
Don't we all?
It's great fun.
Okay, there is one other thing. Like, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but don't you have like the world's largest Bazooka Joe collection?
That's interesting. Well, to me, maybe others. Yeah, that's very possible. I get obsessed as a collector. Everything alphanumerical, and Bazooka Joe was one of those mysteries. I bought the comics as a kid, but nobody knew how many there were, when they started. Really, no information. So I got kind of consumed with. I found a few on eBay, and besides my old collection. So over the course of about a decade, yeah, I was buying thousands of the things and putting them in order. And so it's quite possible I have the only complete collection in the world.
Wow.
Maybe. I could say that because I don't know anybody else that's even close.
How many pieces are in the collection?
There's probably over 1,500.
Wow.
They used to release about 30 or 40 a year.
Okay.
And they started in 1954. And they're still making Bazooka Joes, but they're not the comics anymore. Now they're trivia or stuff like that. But the actual comics, they kind of stopped about 2006. Anyway, there's 1,500, and they're a lot of fun.
That's amazing. That is super cool. How long did it take you to collect all those?
Actually, once I started, it took like 12 years. I started in eBay. I discovered in 1998. And I just, anytime there was a big group of them, I would buy them and I'd get them and put them in order. And I started to see the dates and the numbers. And I even actually wrote a book. It hasn't been published yet.
Okay. If only you knew a printer.
You know, that's crossed my mind. I really should do that, self-publish. Yeah, I really should.
I mean, if only you knew just one.
Yeah, if you got recommendations, let me know.
He's in the mirror, buddy. He's in the mirror.
I think that would be awesome. Yeah, reprint them or something. Right. They've done it for baseball cards. They've reprinted all the baseball cards. So, yeah, redo the Bazooka Joes. Sure.
Yeah.
And that led to me also collecting Fleer Funnies from Double Bubble Gum, because there were comics there.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about bubblegum comics. They're huge in Europe. They got Tom and Jerry in Arabic. They've got the Flintstones, Barbie. It's just massive in Europe, but I mostly concentrate.
So what's your take on bubblegum after all this?
I got a piece right in my pocket.
You're still chewing?
Yeah, I didn't think it would look good on camera, but yeah, I got a piece here. What is it? Oh, yeah, Double Bubble, but no comic in this, unfortunately. Yeah.
So it was really your love of bubblegum that caused all this.
Probably at some point. It's like, what's this thing wrapped around the gum? Yeah, a comic. Cool. So that's
awesome. All right, one last question. Besides tabling and friends at the con and everything, like, what's your favorite thing about being at the con?
My favorite thing is just actually people watching. It's all the people in costume and just everybody having a good time and meeting new people also. That's always fun. So that's probably that is my favorite thing. Just being with a lot of people like-minded.
Awesome. Right on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, dude.
Thank you.
Cheers.
This is great.
This is Groovy. I'm here with the legendary Bazooka Joe guy of the century, Bob Conway, an artist, printer, just all around rad dude and superhero. Bye.
So long.